why men need to rise as masculine leaders of their homes, accept the mantle of responsibility, and grow themselves. And I'm real fired up about this topic. This is like my bread and butter now. And just from my own experience, my own life, the more that I stepped into that role and I stopped making excuses for myself, and I allowed men like Brandon to really pierce me to the core and be like, brother, this is where you're failing. This is where you need to grow. Here's the ways you need to do it better. And started doing those things. Not just my marriage, but my whole life has transformed. Like my stress is lower. I'm more fulfilled. I'm living in what God designed me to do. I'm fulfilling my purpose. And especially when we're talking about Christian men today, I think many of them think that it's about being a nice guy. And if you look throughout the Bible, there's a lot of examples of where, men of God were not very nice in terms of how we think of it. So I would love for you to kind of give your thoughts on what that really needs to look like, where men are failing today from your perspective, and what they need to fix.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall any renowned man of history that a man would be like, yeah, I want to be like that man that was like a nice man.
Right.
Like that was the nice guy. Because I mean, even C.S. Lewis, probably a nice guy, kind, but the way in which he wrote, and the way in which he displayed masculinity, by no means is mere Christianity a nice writing, right? Very piercing.
Just to clarify for the listeners, when I say like nice guy, I'm talking about like the guy who defers to his wife about everything because he doesn't want to make her upset, and he's the family butler, not the family captain. Like that, that like perpetual Christian guy who's like, well, I just serve my family. Like, well, what does that really mean? I'm a servant leader, and that's all they are, and that's all they say they are. And in reality, what they are is they're just abdicating all the responsibility of leadership to their wife and their kids, and crushing them with that weight.
Yeah.
But they're being nice, so it's good, So that's kind of what I was talking about.
Yeah, somehow we think it's nice to put the ball into the another person's court. I mean, I will say it's either niceness or evil that brought about the problems of feminism, right? First, second, third wave feminism. We either abdicated our responsibility, and so then who is going to take that? Who's going to take that place? Well, it's going to be a woman, right? If it's not a man, it's going to be a woman. Or men were like, oh, this is a great way for us to use women. So there's no other way to look at it. It's either evil or niceness, and both of them obviously happened, and that's why up rose women to then take the place, and women then thinking that they're men, and just, which is an out and out rebellion against God. But the rebellion started with men being nice, right? The rebellion started with men being nice, with men being evil, right? Either one of those or both, right? And somehow we think, if I rock the boat, then I'm, happy wife, happy life type thing. And, I would be curious to see if we could look behind the curtains on anybody who actually walks out happy wife, happy life, if their life is indeed happy. My guess is their life isn't happy, and their wife is not happy either, right? Both people are getting there.
I know a lot of married people like that. Like I could list their names right now. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
They're some of the most miserable people I know.
Yeah.
Because they are completely trapped by neither one of them living in what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Like like we have this ingrained natural sense of what is right and wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're not living within your purpose, like the example you give about the hammer, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a hammer hitting trees and trying to dig ditches instead of hitting nails, you're not going to feel good. You're not really being effective. You're not getting anything done. And so both people are just suffering.
That's right.
What they call a marriage.
And I've been able to watch marriages that got called out on this, men that got called out on this, and started the really difficult row that they had to hoe, filled with weeds and just bad stuff, to actually establish appropriate and proper headship and leadership in Christ. over their bride. And I know that some people are going to take this the wrong way. So sure, you can fall off the horse the other way, right? And you can be an authoritarian sinner, right? And abuse your wife and abuse your children,
Right.
even if it's not physical or sexual, it's like emotional and verbal and all of that, of course. But there is a right way. There is an appropriate way. And in Christ, we know that the appropriate way is that the man is leading the home, and is setting the appropriate example. And then it is servant leadership, because I think people say servant leadership so they can just be the servant, but really they just want to be the wallflower. They don't even really want to be the servant. They're like,
Right.
oh, I'll just be the servant. So all I'll do is come home and kick my feet up, or all I'll do is just everything that my wife wants me to do. And then, man, why does our marriage suck? Why does our sex life suck? Why do our kids suck?
Because you're just another kid for her to manage.
That's exactly it. And the interesting thing is, I don't know which one came first, the chicken or the egg, but that's typically all we see in media, right? Movies, shows, you name it, right? Is this bumbling idiot of a man that can't do
the Homer
anything
Simpson
right.
effect.
And the wife has to do everything for him and is smarter and is better and better looking and all this stuff. And he's a slob, and he just can't get right. And he needs his wife. He's totally just another kid in the equation. And that's the furthest thing from God's design.
The other strong case of that is going to be the woman who exhibits sociopathy and narcissism, and then the man who shows the desperation to be loved from either a mom wound or something like that. And there's a lot of codependency there. And so that servant leadership is literally, they're just people pleasing their wives to try to get the love that they desperately yearn for. And it's like, I've seen that time and time again. I see young single men who are so desperate, they just have to jump from one relationship to another. And God's really calling them to be in a season of loneliness to grow themselves out of that. And a lot of men shirk that, and it harms them and just relationally breaks them. And then they end up in relationships where the woman does take on a narcissistic or a very authoritative role in there. And then they get married. And I think that's where a lot of the statistics come from divorce, especially with the women that are initiating the divorce, right?
That's right.
So it's super sad, but yeah, it's definitely something that we have to solve as men. Is we have to seek what's right in our own hearts and fix what's right in us, or what's wrong in us, so that most that we have is right. And usually the case is, one, going to Christ first. Obviously, we have to have a change of heart. You can't have any foundational change that will last without the true saving grace of Christ, in my opinion. That's number one. Number two is to go and seek the weaknesses in yourself and figure out, look at real examples in your life and how you've been scarred and why you behave that way, and then start controlling those factors and start weeding out and dying to yourself. 1,000 funerals creates the ultimate life, right? And so, yeah, that's a big part of it. And it's sad to see so many marriages just in shambles from those situations.
Yeah, I would say that the woman right now is getting the language and the culture ingrained in her that it needs to be that, bad girl type thing, that sociopathic, right, narcissistic personality disorder even. And I would say,
babe.
well, yeah, exactly, boss babe. Yeah, and I would say if there's any chance of salvation for that woman, right? If there's any chance, if they are saved, if there is any chance of sanctification for that woman, it's not going to be by the man folding like a cheap suit or folding like a lawn chair. It's going to be by the man asserting a Christ under Christ, right? In Christ. So, right, committed to Christ, but a Christ-like relationship with that woman. And so the best thing that we can do isn't to slobber them with our pathetic attempts at trying to receive love, but actually give them true love, God's definition of love, not the culture's definition of love, which is the truth of what is going on right there. No, that's inappropriate. And I'm sorry, we're not going to stand for that in this house.
Yeah.
That's not
Exactly.
okay. And I love you, and because I love you, I will fight for our marriage, and I will fight
Yep.
for you and your sanctification or your salvation. And it's not
Yeah.
because I don't like you. It's not because I'm trying to call you out or make you out to be this demonic being or whatever. You are made in the image of Christ. You're made in the image of God, and I love you. And I love you too much to say that what you're doing is okay, that what you're
Yeah.
doing is appropriate.
And even for those who maybe, if you're still with us and you're not religious, good on you. Appreciate you staying. From just a psychological point of view, the way women are ingrained is they're testing you to see like how strong your convictions are. They're wanting to know, is this man safe? Is he really serious about what he's saying?
Yeah.
Is he going to stick to his own rules, right?
right.
She's testing the strength of your character, not just your physical strength. And so every time that you fold to her emotions, it actually makes her scared, like big time, because then she knows, wow, this big, strong man crumples the second my emotions get intense.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, I talk to guys when I train them in this stuff, is like, when you go to the grocery store, do you go, honey, do we need a cart? Or do you just grab the cart and go? You know, every time you're putting off these little decisions on her, you're sending that signal that I'm just your son and I need mommy to take care of me. And if you think that that's going to make her feel safe and want to follow you and want to be in a marriage with you, you're crazy, because she's going to get real tired of you really quick, and she's going to be overwhelmed and stressed and tired and stretched thin, because basically you're abdicating all these just basic decisions on a daily basis for her. And so that psychology is extremely powerful, right?
Yep.
And to deny that that's how our brains work and the messages you're sending subconsciously goes a great deal in the peacefulness of your home. And so the good news, men, is maybe you're listening to this, you're like, holy crap, I've really dropped the ball here. I've totally been, happy wife, happy life. I really need to like get my life around and change this stuff. The good news is, if you actually start working on you stop blaming your wife for whatever the problems are and just grow yourself. She may be wrong on many things. Fine. That's for her. You focus on yourself. You surround yourself with stronger, better men who will help teach you and like support you through this process. As you grow in those things, she will naturally have no choice but to start responding to you in a positive way.
That's right.
Because you will become this bigger, stronger, more capable man. She will want to follow. She'll be like, there he is. I've been waiting for this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm oversimplifying what really happens, but that psychology is huge. And we're not trained that very well as men today.
Yeah.
And to understand that basic dynamic really helps a lot in terms of, I believe these things, or I profess to believe these things.
Yeah.
I profess to believe that these are the rules that, God or whoever else you may believe in says I need to live by. Then you better follow through on them.
Yeah.
And if your wife can pull you off mission that easily, she's not feeling confident.
That's right. Yeah, there's far more risks involved for her just from how God created women and men. There's far more risk for her. She needs protection, she needs security, and not just in the physical sense, right? Physical, emotional, and spiritual, all the way through, all the way down. Right?
Yeah.
She needs
Emotional safety is number one.
And if you want intimacy, well, security and trust is the road to get that intimacy. It's not like forcing it or trying to manipulate it or whatever, because that'll get old real quick, and that's just a poor, immature shadow of a truth of the way to get intimacy and to have intimacy